Hi, everyone. I'm Bailie, and welcome to the Rising Tide Leadership Podcast, POV Gen Z. I am back here with my mentor, Mo. For the past 10 years, Mo has been my go-to guide for wisdom and guidance, whether I'm dealing with personal challenges or trying to figure out how to navigate relationships. He is the guy. And he's also the busiest man alive because he's a CEO, a consultant, an army chaplain, a pastor, a swim coach, and really just the smartest person I know. So, hey, Mo.
Wow. Thanks. It's good to be here. I'm excited. Let's do it.
So, I was thinking about questions that made me cringe, and I feel like they're pretty universal. But questions like, do these pants make me look fat? Or do you like my new haircut? What do you think of my art project? How does my new recipe taste? What did you think about my ex-boyfriend? There are a lot of loaded questions, to say the least. And I was thinking about it because Dale Carnegie, someone we talk about a lot in his book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, emphasizes that everyone wants to feel important. But sometimes telling the truth doesn't make somebody feel important. And it can do the opposite of actually leaving long-lasting wounds. But on the other hand, John Wooden, who's another mentor and giant that when he's standing on the shoulders of giants, says the timeless principle of never lie, never cheat, never steal. He reminds us to prioritize honesty, no matter how hard it may be. And I was just thinking about this as being a 20-something-year-old girl because it's a tough one. I don't want to hurt people's feelings, and I also don't want to lie. So I thought this would be a practical one for girls and guys, probably for their girlfriends, mostly centered around girls, of how are we supposed to communicate honestly, but still make people feel important and make people feel like they aren't awful, essentially. So I will give you a little bit more of a personal example. So every month, my mom comes in from, every time I say this, it sounds like she lives on the East Coast. She lives an hour away. She lives an hour away, but she comes like once a month and we do a mom and daughter date and we go to get brunch. You know my mom. My mom is like me times a million. Like, if you think I'm insane, my mother is on another level and I'm obsessed with her. But we just kind of like have the most fun day and get brunch, mimosas. We're like shopping always, or like at least window shopping. We always go to lunch. We're like living on cloud nine. And because my boyfriend and I, Nick, are getting closer to, talking about engagement and, looking at serious, looking at it as a serious relationship, my mom and I were like, oh my gosh, we should try on rings, like just for fun. And I was like, wow, that sounds so much fun. I've never done that before. And it would be so much fun with my mom. Like I was excited to like have this special moment with her. So we go and we try on all these rings and I have so much fun. And it's a day that I will never forget. I get home, I'm floating on a cloud. I don't really feel the need to share the experience with anyone just because like girls in their late 20s, a lot of your friends are single and it's just kind of a sensitive subject. You don't want to like rub it in people's faces of like, oh my God, I'm like ring shop. Like, at least in my experience, it's a sensitive topic. So I don't say much. I'm just like, happy on the inside. And my friend sees pictures of rings on my phone and she's like, oh my God, did you go ring shopping when your mom was in town? And I was like, yeah, I did. And she was like, oh my God, I have to see, like, let me see them. So I'm like hesitantly showing because once again, it's a sensitive subject. So I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. So I show her like my favorite one, not like the plethora of ones I've tried on, just one. And this is like the one I was like stoked about. Like I was really excited about this one. I thought like, man, I'm going to get one very similar to this style when I actually start looking for rings. And to my surprise, she looks at it and the very first thing she says is, that is the most hideous ring I have ever seen. And I was absolutely shocked. And it was so surprising that it was like kind of comical at the time. So I like just kind of brushed it off and was like, yeah, well, that's the one I loved, and kind of just like moved on. But it was something that kept eating at me. I kept thinking about it. It kept making me upset. It kept making me question, like, that wasn't very nice. Like, I feel like out of anything you could have said, maybe like you could have said anything other than that, is what I'm thinking in my head. So I eventually I address it with her, and she didn't even remember she had said that comment, which is like crazy, like how much, words like don't mean something to one person and mean everything to another. But I couldn't deny the one thing that she did correctly is she was not lying. She pulled a John Wooden classic 101. So I have to give her credit for that. So I wanted to ask you, how do you decide when the truth is necessary, even if it might hurt somebody? I want to start off with that question.
And that story is great. Hey, we want friends who will tell us the truth, and she told you the truth. Was she speaking the truth in love? Probably. And blunt she was. Most of us don't understand what our words mean. And like you said, she didn't even think about it again. And ring's ugly. And how many times do girls think that something else on another girl's ugly?
All the time.
Right?
All the time.
How many times did I ask you and all the other girls, when you girls were all on swim team together, I'm like, does everybody know that everybody's lying to each other? Like when somebody's wearing an ugly outfit and all the girls are like, oh my gosh, you look so cute. I'm like, nobody believes that. Does she believe that? And there's just like these blinders that girls put on, right? So I always had fun because I had kind of the inside with all the different girls, and I'd ask them to the side. I always asked you things like that. I'm like, does this
I'd be
girl
like,
really does this girl really think that everybody likes her new haircut? Because I don't think that, so it's always fun for me. So,
yeah,
how do you decide when the truth is necessary, right? Even if it's going to hurt somebody. I always would say you need to prioritize the intent over impact. Is the first thing that you have to think. Intent over impact, right? So ask yourself, am I telling this to help, or is this just so that I can express my opinion? Does this really matter? So here's an example. If one of your friends was about to present a project and their content had this major flaw, whatever the major flaw would be, it's probably better to tell the truth beforehand so they can fix it rather than letting them fall on their face in front of their classmates. So I guess something actionable for Gen Z, for young people, would be you want to use kind honesty. You might say something like, hey, I noticed something that might improve your project. Can I share it with you? And if they say no, then don't. Then when they fall flat on their face, then they could think back and say, oh yeah, they asked me this and I said no.
right.
Okay. So, and the last thing I'd say is this, Babe, you want to gauge the importance. Is this important or is it not important? Because truth matters most when it's going to affect somebody's success, their safety, their well-being. So if you were out at a club with the girls and she's thinking about going to get a late night 2 a.m. ham and eggs with some guy that she just met there, and he's the nicest guy in the world. Oh, we're just going to go get breakfast. It's totally innocent. Okay, it's probably innocent, but is that something that you just say, oh yeah, see you tomorrow? Or is it something that you would say, hey, this is going to maybe affect my friend's safety, and so I'm going to say something?
Definitely.
That's maybe when you want, as a female, especially when you want to step in. And so if it's just about personal preference, in this case with your friend who was looking at your ring, that was a personal preference. Because I'll tell you this, out of all the years and all the females that I've coached, all the college female athletes, I've seen all their rings, and what is beautiful to one girl is absolutely hideous to another.
Of course.
And out of all the weddings that I've done, every single ring is different.
Mm-hmm.
Every single dress is different.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is different.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't choose stuff for your wedding because you think it's ugly, because you think it's incredible. But how many wedding pictures have you looked at and said, oh my gosh, is that what her bridesmaid dresses were?
Multiple, yeah.
Oh my gosh, there's all these
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
But the things that you do, babe, like when you and your mom saw that, you probably both thought it looked incredible. Why? Because you and your mom are of the same mind.
Right.
You are the same mind. your besties. She's your mom.
Yeah.
She raised you. Your preferences are like her preferences because you're her daughter. And so are you using kind honesty?
Got it. Does kind honesty always mean that you have to say something at all? Or does kind honesty mean that you can also be silent? Like, if you can't think of anything kind to say, are you supposed to say nothing? Is that an option? Or are you supposed to find something kind of to say no matter what?
Absolutely. There's situations where not saying anything at all is the best. So how do you discern those moments? Right? We've talked about that. That's been a question we've been talking about for years.
Uh-huh.
This is how you gauge that. For everybody out there that needs to know, when do I say something, when do I not? When do I speak up? When do I know? What's the situation? Right? Situational awareness. How many times have we talked about situational awareness? Here it is. How deep is the relationship with this person that you're talking to? Close relationships, your intimate friends. But what about acquaintances, people that you're kind of at work with during the day, or
Right.
I would say avoid unnecessary criticism. Nobody wants constructive criticism from an acquaintance. Nobody does. I don't, you don't, nobody does. If it's not helpful, it's hurtful. That's a great way to think about it.
Mm,
So next time you're going to give your criticisms to somebody who's an acquaintance, think to yourself, is this helpful? Because it's not helpful, it's probably hurtful. So here's an example. Back to the art project, right? If it's
yeah.
not your style, you might say, hey, I can tell you worked hard on this. What inspired you?
Mm,
You still want to know. Really, what you're thinking in your head is, that is the most messed up, ugly art project I've ever seen. I need to know what inspired this. And maybe when they answer you, it might change your perspective on it.
mhm,
Because again,
mhm.
art is all subjective, right? And there's some objective pieces to art. I don't know those things because I don't have that kind of outlook.
Right.
But most beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Mhm.
So here's the filter. Is it helpful or is it harmful? Those are the questions.
So there is are situations where withholding the truth is better for the relationship. Because
Absolutely.
like there are
Yes.
acquaintances, like you're saying, that you don't have to necessarily say the truth because it will harm them rather than help them. But let's take your other example of close friends. For example, I would say that Lauren is a close friend of mine, but like she's my roommate. I love her. I do. But I don't necessarily want her opinion. And we've had this conversation multiple times together because it's been difficult to navigate what we want to hear from one another. Like she is the kind of friend to me that really wants to play a challenger role. She wants to play a um accountability friend role. And me, that doesn't really work very well in
It
my
does not.
life. So, especially when I'm not asking for it. So, it has caused a lot of confrontation in our relationship. And I'm grateful for it because it really has taught me a lot about communication. But it also has not really allowed for 100% safety. We talk about this all the time with me. That's like one of the number one things I need in friendship. And so I wasn't really apt to wanting to talk more about my ring shopping experience with her again, because first of all, we have completely different styles. She's very traditional in like elegant and clean is how I would describe her style. Mine is grand, huge, and I don't really care what it looks like. I just want to do big. I've told Nick that 1,000 times about my ring selection. I don't care if it's triangle, square, circle. I don't care. Just larger than life. And that's my personality. So it makes sense why she hated it because it wants something more timeless. I don't care. I want the sun to reflect off of it and blind somebody in the eye. That's my preference. So I think that's where it gets tricky because even close friendships still not all the time in my scenario, it's still not great to there's still situations where you should withhold the truth, even if you have close friendships. You're not just saying that that is for acquaintances, right? Or are you?
So we're talking about
Yeah.
you and Lauren. So if you were sitting across from me
Hmm.
at my desk on the pool deck, inside the little office, I would say this. Ladies, I know that you are close friends, but you don't have to tell each other everything. So I want you to ask yourself this question. Is what I'm about to say, will this make their day better or worse? There's a 1/1 millionth of a chance that this is going to make her day worse. Don't say it. Think about it. Go talk to somebody you trust, and they can tell you if that's smart or not. I've told you that before. And so, in a mentoring relationship, you would think of something you were about to tell Lauren, and then you wouldn't say it because you'd be thinking, Mo's going to yell at me if I screw this one up. Then you would come to me, and we would sit across each other at a table at Chick-fil-A, and you'd say, Mo, I was going to say this to Lauren today, but I wasn't sure if it was going to make her day better or worse. Here's what I was going to say. What are your thoughts? And then you and I would talk about it for the next hour. We always came to an understanding that you knew more often than not what you should have done. And if there's even a little bit of an inkling of, will this make their day worse? It's best to be left unsaid. There's always another conversation to be had. And there's a million reasons why you were about to say what you were about to say. Most of the time, it's just to make yourself look better because of your insecurities. That's what you and I always came up with.
Absolutely.
I say, well, what made you think about this comment that you were going to make to so-and-so or so-and-so? And you say, well, I don't know, because she this, that, or the other. And I'd say, that sounds more of a you problem than a her problem. That's more of the Bay project and not the so-and-so project. Why do you feel the need to tell her that? I don't know. I really don't. Well, then why are you saying anything at all? So that's what I would say. So hopefully she's listening to this right now.
Well, and that's so true, because we have had conversations about like the ring, for example. She didn't even remember. She did not even remember saying that to me. She had no idea. And I had to say, gosh, I'm actually a little bit more sensitive than I lead on to be. I try to come off as this like really harsh, I don't really care about feelings, like kind of person, but actually like your words really do hurt sometimes, and I care about what you have to say, and so I don't want to feel hurt. I want to feel like cheered on by my friend, and we've had conversations like that, and she's completely understood. And there are things that I've said that have been things that I have said or not have said or done, because I'm very much more action oriented and just do actions without thinking about them. Whereas she might say words without thinking about them, I do things without thinking about them. So we all have our things to work on, and I'm just thankful that this friendship was able to really hold a lot of grace for one another and not end in a complete disaster like some of my relationships in the past. I'm very, very grateful. I would say it was close to exploding, but we really, really honed in on one another and just came back to the fact that we really love each other as friends. And, maybe like the friendship that we had wasn't working, and we tried to like create boundaries. But I feel like she will be a podcast. She will actually, I think I actually want her to be on the podcast at one point. So we'll talk about her and that situation a little bit later. But I've been talking for a long time, so I want you to share a time where you feel like you were trying to navigate between telling the truth and protecting someone's feelings. Because you work with the girls all the time, young girls, like 20 years old in their college era. That's difficult. There's a lot of emotions on the line. Everyone's always thinking multiple meanings to different words, and it seems like everyone's a detective because we just look into everything all the time. So I'm curious to know what your experience has been with us creatures.
Well, being a coach for females for the entirety of my life, I would say I have those situations every single day. And there was probably not a day that went by that you were there for 4 years that there wasn't something going on with one of the girls. We were always on deck, so we saw each other a lot. You girls saw each other a lot. So it's almost like a whole nother family. And so I would always hear little side conversations whenever we would go to swim meets, things like that. A lot of free time. And so people start talking about things. And whenever I came up with something that I thought was going to be helpful, I would probably say 99 times out of 100, I didn't say anything. Because it's not, unless somebody specifically asks me for my opinion, I'm not even going to consider giving it to them. Even when they ask me for my opinion, I'm still not going to give it to them.
Mm-hmm.
And at one of our conference championships, I was dropping the girls off from room to room because none of you girls wanted to walk anywhere. So, of course, I was a big softie. And it came down to two of these girls, and they were in the last room together, which was a little ways down around the corner. And so I could hear them talking in the back of the van, and they were kind of whispering and talking about something important. And I wasn't trying to listen in, but I heard one of the girls say, you can ask Mo. You can ask Mo. And so I just pretended like I didn't even hear that. And when we stopped, I just said, all right, have a good night. And the other girl said, Mo, can I ask you something? And she had her friend there for support. And I said, absolutely. What's up? And she brought forth a really difficult situation within a relationship. And she earnestly wanted my opinion. Did I have thoughts? Absolutely. But I didn't give those thoughts because I already knew what she wanted to hear.
Mm-hmm.
What she wanted to hear was probably not best for her. And so I just turned it around and I asked a question and I said, well, you make some great points about what you're thinking and the decision you're going to make in this relationship. But what do you think would happen if you do this and what happens if you do this? And we sat in the van for like 45 minutes and these girls just talked with each other and they worked it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the decision that she made. We all know what we want to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know what you want to do in a situation. I know what I want to do in a situation.
Right.
So I'm not going to give my opinion because only two things can happen if I give my opinion, and they're both bad. Either you don't take my advice, and it's probably going to not go the way it should because I'm a pretty good judge of those kind of things. Or what's even worse is you might take my advice, in which case there's a 50-50 shot that it doesn't work out. And if it doesn't work out, guess whose fault it is?
Yours.
It's Mo's fault. If Mo gave bad advice. I'm not giving advice. I'm asking questions.
This brings up such a, oh gosh, such a pivotal time in my life when I was dating my ex-boyfriend and I was begging you. I was begging you for your opinion. Absolutely begging you. Please, Mo, please, Mo, please, Mo. I already knew what you thought. But, and you wouldn't tell me. You wouldn't tell me. I would plead for hours and days and months.
I remember
And
those
you
days.
never, ever, ever caved. And I think it was so you're so right, because either way it would have been bad. If you would have told me how you really felt, what was I to do? I was in love. I'm not going to do it. Like, there's no way I would have made a decision because I was not in the right mind. And the second thing is, if what you didn't tell me and I just kept doing what I wanted to do because I really was going to make that decision no matter what. And it was really, really difficult. And I give you so much kudos because I can be really annoying and I begged, even though I already knew you thought. And I think that kind of just went to show that I was trying to fool and play something up that it wasn't. And I was trying to make you, because you're the most influential person in my life. Oh, I just want Mo to see this, and I want to say the right things, and I want him to know that all of these things are happening, and he's reading all these books, and he's doing all these things, and he didn't care about that. And yeah, it's just crazy. It's crazy what an opinion can do for somebody, and the acceptance it can make you feel in your own decisions and justification of your own decisions is really powerful. And when you didn't give that to me, it just kept leading me to ask more questions to myself. It kept asking me of more because I was the one responsible. There was no one else. Everyone else loved him. There was no one else that was really asking me tough questions except for you. And You didn't even answer the questions that I knew you were thinking. I know you so well, I just know. But because of that, because this leads perfectly into my next question, because emotional intelligence obviously plays a huge role in relationships. You were so emotionally intelligent in our relationship that you knew it would have caused a major strain, extra strain in our relationship than it already did in that moment. And you were very aware of that. And how did you know what I was thinking? Because was I that easy to read? Or what was like how much does emotional intelligence play? Like I feel like if you were a normal Joe Schmo, you would have absolutely caved, like by my 1000 pleas to tell me how you feel. So like how are we supposed to build up our emotional intelligence to actually be balancing truth and kindness? When to give people an opinion and when not to?
Emotional intelligence is the whole game when it comes to relationships because there is the self-aware part of emotional intelligence, and then there's the social awareness. I was always self-aware and still am to know that nobody wants my opinion. Put it up on your mirror, look at it every day. You're not that good. Nobody wants your opinion. People want their opinion from you. That's what people want. And I knew that. And your class was no different than the classes before you or the ones after you. Everybody goes through the same thing. I went through the same things when I was a kid. Emotional intelligence is the whole game. If you want to balance truth and kindness, what I always think about is this. I want to recognize how impactful my words are on others. And I think everybody, especially in the younger generation, recognizing that words impact others. The problem is we live in this online society now on TikTok and Instagram and all these other social media platforms that it's easy just to say things.
Mm-hmm.
And when somebody says something, it's just a throwaway. Kind of like you said, Lauren just kind of said something and just forgot about it
Yeah,
because there's not somebody usually sitting on the other side. Now, Lauren actually does it into your face, right?
absolutely.
Remember when you told me, hey, I put out this TikTok video, and after I put out this TikTok video, I got some mean comments, and I ended up taking it down
Yep.
because people just say what they're thinking, and all the garbage and the word vomit that comes out of their mouth,
Mm-hmm.
they don't care. And
Totally.
so, if you want to be somebody who is a relational genius, you need to learn how to be emotionally intelligent and recognize that your words impact others. So, emotional intelligence is going to help you choose the right words to be honest and empathetic. That's what I want to be. I'm not a liar, but I'm not going to give my thoughts. You already knew what I thought. Most people already know what I think. I don't need to tell you. I'm not going to tell you. So, if somebody's outfit is ugly, I'm not going to tell them. I'm going to focus on the effort. I'm going to say, hey, that's a unique look. Where'd you find it?
Well, then, what would you say, Mo, to John Wooden when he says, "Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal"? Like, what is he referring to then in that quote?
John Wood was a relational genius among relational geniuses. In the book, They Call Me Coach, the way that he talked to his players, they always knew what he was thinking. John Wooden used to have a rule that you had to have your hair above a certain part on your neck. He said, during season, you got to be clean cut. After season, you can do whatever you want. And Bill Walton, after a couple of seasons of being the best player in the country, decided I'm not going to cut my hair. But he already knew what John Wooden thought. He already knew what John Wooden was going to say. So when Bill Walton showed up to that first practice, John just said, well, we're going to miss you this year, Bill. And Bill Walton ran out of the gym, went and got a haircut, did this all within a span of like 15 minutes because he wasn't allowed to be late to practice. Everybody already knows what John Wooden thinks. He was a level 5 leader, though. Kevin's a level 5 leader. I don't need to ask him. I already know what he's thinking. Now, I do ask him, and I try to look into his eyes, and I try to figure out what he's thinking, but he's got a better poker face than I do. So here's some tips for young people. If you want to improve your emotional intelligence, here's something easy to do. Pause before you speak. How are these words going to land? I'm just pulling the pin on this word bomb grenade, and I'm just going to throw it over and see what happens. If it's going to explode and mess something up, step back. And the second thing is this. Always practice empathy. put yourself in their shoes. How would you feel receiving that feedback? If Lauren would have thought for 1 second, what if I showed Bailie my favorite ring? What if she said this to me? Young people need to do that. And this whole, well, I don't care what people think, that's garbage. Nobody thinks that. That's fake toughness. And I don't believe that for a second.
Just reminds me of, have you seen John Tucker Must Die? That movie?
No.
Oh my God. You need to watch it. It's like every 20-year-old girl's favorite movie. You
Okay.
have to watch it. But it reminds me of basically there are these like group of girls, like popular girls that all like the same guy, and they all find out they're all dating the same guy, and they try to like get back at him. So a new girl comes to school and they teach her all of the best tricks that they all know. Like one's really smart, one's really funny, one's really athletic, one's really popular, and they like all teach this girl the best of what they know. This girl's like from the middle of nowhere. She like moved from a rural area and like doesn't know anything. So like they had to teach her like from the bottom up how to be flirting, all the stuff. So they're like, okay, when he talks to you, don't respond super eagerly. Like wait 3 seconds and then respond. And like, so she has like a little earphone in so that they can hear what she's saying.
Oh, jeez, wow.
And John Tucker like asks her a question like, "Hey, do you want to go to the homecoming dance with me?" And she's like saying in her head, like waiting to respond. And the girls are like, "He's gonna think you're slow, like a little faster than that." But I think it's just reminded me of like the least you can do is pause, and I think that's a really good.
Just pause.
Oh, it's a really good reminder because I think also another thing that a lot of young people want to do nowadays is be so quick to come back with something. Everyone wants to be like a very tactful speaker, especially when it comes to witty revenge kind of speak. It's almost gives you a certain kind of clout. And there are some people that have made their entire platform on being able to roast others quickly. So yeah, I completely agree. And I also think that the pause allows for that little bit of tension for the moment as well. I feel like I should have paused as well after Lauren said that comment to me. I feel like that would have also caused maybe time to like think about something. If I wasn't so quick to be like, oh, that's all right. Like, never mind. That's not how I really felt. I was like a little bummed. I'm really getting in the weeds here. Let's get to the next question. Okay, let's just take that example really quickly. If we were in that scenario and she said that to me, how would you have responded in the moment?
Pause. Take a deep breath. It's okay to say something after that. Well, thanks for sharing that. I'll think about that. Well, what else is there to go from there?
It's so good.
It would have been an awkward moment, but it probably would have made her think. I just put my foot in my mouth. I don't let people get away with that stuff with my intimate friends. If somebody I don't care about, we wouldn't be having that conversation anyway. And I really don't have relationships like that anymore anyway, because I've already weeded those relationships out. But back in the day when I did have some of those relationships and I started learning how to respond, that's something that I would have said.
I also can think of another word that you like to say a lot. Wow.
Yeah, if we were talking about sarcasm and I wanted to save somebody from my witty comeback, which I'm wittier than people. I've already got 6 comebacks and they all cut to the bone because I listen and I know people really well, but I never say something to somebody that I can't take back. Being the coach of an all-girls team, girls say things that are biting on purpose.
Oh, yeah.
Girls have said those things to me before. And because I care about the relationship in the long term, I wouldn't respond because I'm not going to give in to that. That's somebody's insecurity talking. And I already know their insecurities. I already know all your insecurities. If I wanted to say something that cut to the jugular and just destroy our relationship, but feel really good about myself, I could say that, but I'm not going to because I'm always looking for the lesson. Hurtful feedback is going to have some truth in it, but you have to ask yourself, what can I learn here? And if there's nothing to be learned, why am I even going to say it?
Right.
I'm going to set boundaries in all my relationships. I've set boundaries in every single relationship that I have. A lot of times those people don't know those boundaries. I know the boundaries. And that's what matters. If feedback feels unfair, it's okay for you to respond with, I appreciate your honesty, but I prefer that you deliver it a little bit different next time.
Hmm.
And then just wait, pause. What would somebody say in that? What would Lauren?
It's so,
Okay.
yeah, apologetic, super apologetic. Yeah.
In that case, she would learn, and we all need to learn. You've needed to learn, and I
God,
continue to tell you those things. How many times were we sitting across the table with, is it's your fault? You
totally.
messed that up. So how would I respond? I always pause. I always look for the lesson. I always set the boundaries, and I own those. Nobody can take those away from me. Nobody can make me respond after I say something that helps them understand that what they said was really stupid in the moment.
Mhm. Well, you already answered the rest of my questions. You answered how we can.
That's it. I'll see you later. Till next time.
You answered how we can make other people feel important without resorting to flattery or dishonesty, because you don't necessarily always have to say something, and you can always find something kind to say. And if you can't, then saying nothing at all is completely fine. That's what we learned, right?
I always want people to feel important. I spot the genuine positives in people. Okay? Hey, I really like how you always stay so calm under pressure. Instead of, wow, you're amazing.
That's me.
That's vague.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
why we've talked about this before. Sometimes people don't take what you say seriously.
Totally.
Why are they amazing?
Hmm.
Another thing that I do, if I want to help people feel important, is I celebrate their effort and their growth. You're not always going to win. So if one of your friends tries something new and they struggle and they don't really succeed, you might just say, so I'm really proud that you were able to step out of your comfort zone, because that's how growth happens. And I got to say, I wish I had that. That's a genuine compliment. This is how you take action on this. Ask the intentional questions, because the more intentional you are, the better you're going to be in relationships. So always ask intentional questions. And the reason you ask intentional questions is you want people to feel seen. When I sit across the table with Bailie, I want to know that, Bay, I see you for who you are and who you can be. I've asked several times, hey, what was the best part of your day today? You ask somebody that, just let them go. Not how was your day?
Right.
Hey, what was the best part of your day? Well, I hated swim practice. I didn't like my classes, but the best part of my day was keeping it positive. I'd ask our swimmers after a swim, what are you most proud about in that swim? What did you like most about that swim? Not, hey, you missed that wall, because I've been known to do that. And that's tough as a coach. I've said that a few times. So, you girls got pure Mo when I was on deck.
Who's the best?
And that's why I had to be extra intentional in everything that I did, because I was called to be a coach. There's a difference between a mentor and a coach.
Totally. Yeah.
Right? A
Yes.
mentor is where you go to a mentor and say, this is what I'm doing in life. How am I doing? But a coach in your life, you go to a coach and say, hey, make me better. The student athletes had to trust that the coaches wanted what was best for them, both in the pool and out of the pool. So those are just some things that you can do if you want to be honest. I always want to be honest.
Totally. Okay, last question. And this one is kind of specific to me, because I deal with anxiety, and I know a lot of people do. So, what advice do you have for people who feel anxious about receiving criticism in relationships? Because you know me, I already said accountability in friendship is really difficult for me. There almost has to be some sort of reverse psychology type, situation going on in order for me to, even begin to listen. So, why is that? I'm gonna ask myself that question first. I'm gonna answer it because I have been asked that question. Why is that the case? And the case is because you're not that intimate friendship for me. And I know that what you're gonna ask me right now is, well, then who is? And I'm gonna say, I don't know. Because we've gone through this, and I'm trying to bring people to the next level of intimate friendships that I find are compatible with me as that level. But is it wrong for me to like not care about what other people think or really ask the people their opinion if like I don't understand. Like people get so offended when I say like I don't want you to say anything. I just want you to listen to me. I'm trying to work things out. It's hard for me to understand myself. So I'm going to like verbally process here. People don't like that. People get upset and they're like, what do you mean? You don't like value what I think, like what I think? You don't think I'm smart enough to like give you any feedback on your life? You don't think I'm like, I've had people get very angry at me for not wanting their opinion. And so what would you say to somebody like that? Like me?
What would I say to somebody like you, or what I say to you?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. We don't just talk about my friend. Talk about me.
Well, I've been saying it to you for the last 10 years, and it hasn't changed. You're the kind of person that people want to be close to you. All of your friendships, all the girls that have come into your life, they've appreciated you. The stuff that you deal with has to do with letting people get close to you. That's okay. You have to bring in a perspective of these people just really want to speak into my life because they love me and they care about me and they want what's best for me. Start there. But even though I know now that they love me and care for me, I still don't want their advice. Here's what you need to do. And here's what anybody needs to do that is anxious about receiving criticism in relationships. Number one is shift your perspective. So think to yourself, criticism it's not an attack. It's a chance for me to grow. Reframe whatever they say and think to yourself, well, how can this feedback teach me? Because if somebody says something to you, there's probably some truth to it. And then you need to learn how to reframe what people say in your head. Not even, what do they mean? What do I think they mean? What do I need it to mean? When somebody says something to me, I think, why would they say that? If somebody tells me I'm a jerk, they probably did something in their mind that thought that I was a jerk. What do I need to change? What does that tell me? Maybe I don't need to change anything. You know me. I have a very specific and different way of coaching. And people who look on the outside would say, why would you want to swim for Mo? Constant screaming and yelling and telling you you're not good enough is essentially what's happening. But the swimmers and the girls on our team, specifically in my group, they all know how much I care about them. Mm-hmm. And nobody could tell them otherwise. Yeah, but every time I saw Mo, he was yelling at you, or after a swim, he was telling you what you were doing wrong or whatever. And nobody needs to know the kind of relationship that I have with my swimmers. It's for them and them only. Mm-hmm. That's the special bond that I have as a coach with my student athletes. That's what I love about coaching young people, to have that special bond.
Yeah.
Secondly, ask for clarification. You can always ask for clarification. If feedback feels unclear, you can always ask, can you give me an example so I can understand better? Somebody might say to you, Bailie, you go out every weekend and you're never in one spot and you only care about having fun. Yeah. Which is probably pretty true. You love going out, you love having fun. But somebody might not understand that. And you could say to them, well, can you give me an example so I can understand better? And they would say, well, you went out last Friday, you went out this Friday, you went out this Saturday, you went out on Sunday, even though you had to work on Monday morning. And you would think, oh, wow, that's true, I did. But if you don't ask for the example, then you're making things up in your head. What does she mean when she says that? What does he mean when he says that? Ask people to clarify. One more thing. Strengthen your self-awareness. We're talking about emotional intelligence today, and I can't tell you how important it is to have self-awareness. So here's an example. Take time to list your strengths so you don't have to feel defined by somebody else's criticism. You already know what your strengths are because we went over StrengthsFinder 2.0, and we went over your top 5 in depth.
Yes.
And then when you took it again later on and some of them shifted, we went over them again. So it doesn't matter how people want to label you. I know what your strengths are. You know what your strengths are because we've talked about them. So if you know what your strengths are, then you don't have to worry about what other people think. It's the work that you put in so that you know who you are, so it doesn't matter what people say. Here's something that you can do actively. Constructive criticism says more about the work and less about the worth of a person. It's not about, it doesn't tell you what you're worth. It's saying, what's going on in this moment? What does somebody not like about what's about me in this moment? And moments don't define us. There was a great interview that Nick Saban, Roll Tide, gave at the end of the national championship when they lost to Georgia. And he was out there on the press conference, and he had two of his players sitting next to him, his two star players, and they were so defeated. You can actually hear the other team celebrating behind the walls. And these guys felt like they let coach down. They felt like they let the fans down. They let the university down, the dynasty of Alabama. And so the reporters asked a couple of questions of these guys. And then they said, is there anything else? And the reporter said, guys, you can go. As they were getting up, Nick Saban physically put his hands on each of their shoulders. And he says, if it's okay, I'd like to say something. Well, those players just stayed right there. Everybody was on pins and needles. What is Coach going to say? And Coach Saban said, this game does not define these guys. This one moment does not define these guys. These guys are incredible guys. They care about their team. They're leaders. They're wonderful people. So don't let today define. That was the validation from somebody that knew those guys. It didn't matter what the rest of the world says. I've been on both sides of that. I've been the player and I've been the coach in those hard moments. And as a coach now, as somebody who coaches people, from young people to business executives, I like to put my hand on the shoulder of people and say, do not let this moment define you. Whatever's going on, remember that the criticism says more about the work in the moment than the worth in the long haul.
I love that. That was so good. God. Can you give us the last word?
I'll close with my thoughts on John Wooden and what he believed. He believed that truth plus kindness equals respect. And so being honest isn't about being blunt. You want to say the truth in a way that adds value to a person. Because John Maxwell says in the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, Chapter 21, the law of the legacy is, are you adding value to people every day? At the end of the day, can you say to yourself, I added value to other people? Truth plus kindness equals respect. And I'll give you one example. If someone asks about their singing and it wasn't that great, you can always say, hey, you gave your all. What's something that you want to improve for next time? Because we're all trying to get better. But you got to say it with truth and kindness. And you have to become known as a person who asks the right question and is not trying to put people down. You know that I do not like sarcasm. There's only 2, maybe 3 people in my life that can be sarcastic with me. Everybody else, I'm not going to do it because I might ruin the relationship. When somebody comes to me and tries to be sarcastic with me, I think to myself, we are not that close. We don't have that kind of relationship. I want to speak the truth in love. Truth plus kindness equals respect. And I'll leave our listeners with this. Help people feel seen. That's what we want. We all want to be seen. Dale Carnegie has a principle that says, don't flatter people, make them feel valued. You might say to somebody, gosh, I love how confident you are. Man, I hope you keep going. I hope you get better every time. So specifically for my audience, to let you behind the screen with things that I've said to Bailie before, is when Bailie has felt insecure. First of all, a lot of people didn't see that insecurity in Bailie because they just thought she was always out there and she was the life of the party. And wow, she's athletic and pretty and funny and knows all these things. But deep down inside, Bailie has insecurities, just like I have insecurities and you have insecurities. And what I would always tell Bailie is I would say, look, keep being loud and ostentatious and being yourself. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't be like that, because that's who you are. And as long as you are the person that God made you, as long as you are the person that you know you have been created to be, you're going to get better every day. And so for my listeners out there, for all my Gen Z young people, I'd say, what are the things that you do well? What makes you feel seen? What makes you feel like, gosh, I'm living in the moment. I'm living exactly how I need to be. And if you think to yourself, I really don't know about that, you got to find mentors. You got to find coaches. You got to find friends that can tell you those kind of things. Because it took years for me to help Bailie understand that about herself. She thought she understood. She thought she got it. But just like all of us, she had to be helped. I had to be helped. That's what Kevin was in my life. He took 10 years to do it. Then he took another 10. Then he took another 10. And now we're on the next 10. That's how much you need people in your life. We've never made it. Help people feel seen. And if you are somebody that doesn't feel seen, find the people, the mentors, the men, the women, the friends in your life that help you be the person that you know that you need to be. Be real.
Wow.
That's it.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Rising Tide Leadership Podcast, POV Gen Z. If you ever feel confused, if you're unsure of what you're doing, or wondering if you even care in the first place, it's okay. You are not alone. I'm here with you. And until next time.